Hello, everyone, and welcome to week 13 of digital marketing. We're in a kind of a down period in the whole course in terms of turn-ins and everything like that. You got your tactics and implementations grades, hopefully. Oops, just realized that my video is on. Sorry about that. You got your tactics and implementations sections back. Hopefully that's been useful and interesting to it. I've had a couple of questions about the final presentations, and hopefully, let me see, check the doodle poll. Most of the teams have responded now. I'm still waiting on a few more, but let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I got 6 teams that have responded. If you're one of the 3 teams that still hasn't responded, please get your vote in quickly to choose your final time. I've got time spread over the week of April 24th and the week of April 30th, right? April 23rd and the week of 30th, though. So that's the final week of classes plus the first week of exams. This kind of takes the place of your exam, so that kind of works out well. I had a couple questions about it. People have asked what the audience is for the final presentation. I'm the only person who's going to be on the actual physical audience, but feel free to role play as if you're pitching the actual company that you would be delivering this marketing tactic plan to, the marketing plan to, right? So that's fine, and I will try and ask questions from that perspective as well, right? To a large extent. What I want to see is I want to see you present basically a brief overview of the plan, and then a quick demo of the creative content that you've created during the situation. And I had a couple of people saying, we have a big marketing plan. How do we condense it down? Well, this is kind of a standard situation. You're taking a large piece of information, a very complex concept, and I want you to break it down. And it doesn't even have to be an elevator pitch right here. You've got about 20 minutes for the plan itself, 5 minutes for examples of the creative, and then 5 minutes of question and answer for me. I do have already some back-to-back presentations for that final presentation, so I will need to cut people off pretty much right at 30 minutes. But I think that you should be able to do this, right? Let me know ahead of time what you want to use, right? Whether you want to use Google Hangouts or Skype or WebEx or Zoom or whatever you're using, right? And if you can, it's always helpful for you to just send me a calendar invite with the link that you want to use in it. That's probably the best way to make sure this happens. But other than that, those are the major things. And so besides the final presentation, you have to turn in the final marketing plan itself. You have to turn in examples of your creative content, and there's basically just a text box up on Moodle for you to do that, where you can just type in the URLs for your creative content. If it's something that's more like a document that you want to send to me, right, then you can include it as part of the marketing plan itself. That should all work fine, right? And you can put the demos right in there. Let's see. Other than that, there's also your peer review that you need to turn in. And the grader and I just talked to Christopher, and I just talked about how to make sure that all happens correctly. So you'll be reviewing yourself and on a scale of 0 to 50, as well as your teammates. So we'll take those scores and average them. There will be a slot to upload your presentation as well. That's basically just so I have a placeholder to put the grade in for your presentation. It also helps me, right, just to when I finally go to do the final grade assignments, to have the actual presentation so I can refresh my memory about what you talked about, right? And then let's see, I think that's it. That should be everything. So you have 2 last readings to do. One on the connected consumer, which was assigned last week, and then one I just assigned this week on social CRM and kind of integrating that within your overall system. So take a look at those, and those will also be the topics. And then the last videos for the class will be up by the end of the week, beginning of next week, and so that'll take us through the end of the class, right? That's about it, I think, for big details coming up. Uh, I did want to mention we had a rousing discussion about uh, we had a rousing discussion about Cambridge Analytica and the Mark Zuckerberg testimonies in my offline class. I may very well throw up a last discussion topic on that, just to kind of as an optional topic. I won't, do some grading on it, but I'll put it up and I'll just mark it as optional in the top hat in case you're interested. Um, a lot of what we discussed was whether or not Cambridge Analytica broke any laws or broke the terms of use of Facebook, and it's not 100% clear what the answers to all those questions are. In fact, I at the time said that it was clear they'd broken the terms of use, but doing some additional reading, it's not clear to me that they necessarily did. There was definitely some, how can I put it, deception on the point of Cambridge Analytica. They definitely made it seem like they were collecting data for research purposes for the University of Cambridge. They didn't make it clear to Facebook that they were actually a for-profit business, but it was part of their proposal that there was a for-profit aspect to it. So, you could say that they made it clear enough, right? But they definitely tried to mislead the situation at times. I've found watching the Zuckerberg testimony hysterical, just because of the fact that the senators who are asking questions don't really seem to understand how Facebook works. There's been questions about how they pay for the company, right, which is interesting. Obviously, it's doing quite well, and they pay for it by ads, like a lot of industries out there. There was a question earlier today, I think, on comparing Facebook to wondering what the difference was between Facebook and Twitter, which, granted, they're both social media platforms, so that's useful and interesting to know. But the basic idea and the way they operate is very different. So it was interesting to see how all that happened. And Mark Zuckerberg seems stumped by some of these questions. Just not sure how to start answering them. So the one on Facebook versus Twitter, I think his first response was, "I think they're different," right? Which is kind of interesting. Anyways, from a marketing perspective, so what does this all have to do with marketing, digital marketing, right? Well, Cambridge Analytica was essentially doing political marketing, right? Like, that's really what they were doing. So I think one interesting aspect here is just, as marketers, we need to be aware of and kind of conscious of the ethical ramifications of what we're doing, right? And so even if our terms of service allows something to be done, right, is that actually going to be helpful for the company, right? Cambridge Analytica actually has suffered a lot of blowback because of all this, obviously, and it's not clear that company will continue to survive at this point. And so I would just stress that just because a particular partner that you're working with allows you to do something, you should ask yourself the question if you should do it, right? If it is actually something that if the world were to find out about it, you would be okay with your brand doing. And I think that's if that question had been asked at any point during the Cambridge Analytica investigation, in fact, it was asked. There was a professor who was involved early on who removed themselves from the situation because of their concerns over this. Then I think that we wouldn't have seen the privacy violations that we did. We also started to talk about the fact that, like, under some interpretations of the new EU privacy law, which I believe goes under the letters GDPR, the Facebook would be facing fines in the millions, if not billions, of euros, right, for what happened, because of the fact that this information was gathered. We also talked about, and of course, those laws didn't apply at the time, right? So that's definitely the case. But it is possible that they might still be violating some of the privacy standards that the EU has set up. And so, if that's the case, then they might still face some penalties at some point down the line. We also discussed the fact that many of you, and in fact, this was alluded to in the testimony. I didn't watch all of it, but it was mentioned that in about 5 years ago, I believe it was 2013, Facebook actually had some other privacy issues, and they were facing potential fines with the FTC, and they came to an agreement under which there would be federal auditors embedded at Facebook to audit what the company was doing. And so that could have either a positive or a negative effect. If they're found to have clearly violated the agreement that was devised between the FTC and Facebook at that time, then they could face fines as well. However, right, it also provides a plausible deniability story to Facebook, right? They can say, look, you've been auditing our privacy policies all along, and you haven't said there's anything wrong with them. So how can you now come to us and claim that there is an issue with what's going on, right? So anyways, just some thoughts quickly about what's going on up there. And hopefully this has all been useful to you. And I just noticed the stream is actually saying it's not running. So I'm going to switch back over. I'm going to hope we got all this. If we did, that's a problem. But I'll see what we got. If you have any more questions or concerns about the project or about the final turn-ins, please let me know. I think I've gone through all of them right here. There was one question that came over to email, actually, while I was doing this. In order to continue to prove our final pledge completed by more... Oh, okay, yeah. So we'll try and provide some more details along the way, right, if there are any questions. So if you have any questions about your final comments on the tactics and implementation, please let us know about that as well. Thank you so much for all your help, and I look forward to seeing your final presentation.